2016 had more than one political earthquake. The big ones were first Brexit and then the election of Donald Trump. It really was evident that the world was approaching a fundamental shift in global politics, and academics and journalists kind of quickly argued that the contemporary liberal world order, as we know it today, was kind of coming to an end. And that obviously raised the question, what would come next? And almost reflexively, politicians and pundits argued that we're going back to the Westphalian model of international relations of the sovereign nation-state. But is this really true? Are we really going to go back to a model of international affairs first conceived in 1648? And this is where my research comes in. So I examine in my MRP the conceptualization, development, and emergence of the sovereign nation-state using the bishopric of Würzburg, a tiny country in what's modern-day Germany, as a case study. And this type of research really matters, because only by understanding the past can we make sense of contemporary events. Only by understanding why we came up with the concept of the sovereign nation-state can we see if that's the model that we're returning to. So my research kind of contributes to our understanding in two ways. First, it examines the theory behind sovereignty, and then how that translated into practice. So, for the first, I examined the geopolitical environment of 17th century Europe. And the big deal here is the Holy Roman Empire, which was a kind of a prototype confederation of territories and states loosely bound together by a series of institutions and laws and ruled by the emperor. And the German historian Hadjo Holborn argued in the 1950s that sovereignty was kind of meant to protect the rulers of these states from the overbearing power of the emperor. But I argue that it really can be argued that sovereignty was imposed onto these small states by France and Sweden, who were kind of like the big superpowers of the day, to prevent the empire from consolidating. Now, for the latter, I look at what sovereignty meant to Würzburg. How did they make sense of this new principle? What did it mean to them? How did they use it to further their political ambitions? And again, the common narrative has been is that sovereignty meant complete shutdown from the central institutions of the empire. But Peter Schroeder, an expert in the field, has argued this, and I'm going to make a case along similar lines, is that these states actually utilized the empire's institutions to consolidate their process towards becoming a sovereign state. So, to go back to our question, are we going back to the Westphalian world order? And I argue no, we're not going back, precisely because right now we're moving away from the types of institutions that consolidated sovereignty in the very first place. Thanks for listening.